Hello and welcome to another Tri-tutors video. In today's video we're going to be analysing the poem Solitude by Ella Wheeler Wilcox. Some background on the poet. So Ella lived between 1850 and 1919. She was an American author and poet, and she started writing her first poetry at the age of 8. Her first poem was published when she was just 13. And this poem was inspired, or she wrote this poem after trying and failing to comfort a grieving woman. So once we read through the poem and once we understand the themes, that will make a lot of sense as to why she wrote this in response to that incident. Looking at the title is Solitude, and obviously solitude means, being alone. And it's quite an important title in the sense that it is just a single word, and this use of the single word emphasizes the major theme is that we are all on our own. We are all lonely in our journey through life. So having one word as the title is quite symbolic of that. Stanza 1. Laugh and the world laughs with you. Weep and you weep alone. For the sad old earth must borrow its mirth, but has trouble enough of its own. Sing and the hills will answer, sigh it is lost on the air. The echoes bound to a joyful sound, but shrink from voicing care. So this poet, she's known for writing in a very simple language, or at least this stanza, it's quite simple language, but it communicates quite a complex theme. Later on we'll see the use of more complex imagery, but it's a tricky poem to analyze in the sense that it just keeps building on the same theme or the same message that's being said. And while it is a complex image, she just keeps on using juxtapositions to further drive the point home. So if you notice in every set of 2 lines we have laugh and weep. Later on we have sing and sigh. Later on we have in the next stanza rejoice and grieve. And the last stanza feast and fast. And so these are all juxtapositions that are used throughout the poem. You can also refer to them as antithesis. And these are contradictory ideas which are really driving the point home. So if we look at the first line, laugh and the world laughs with you. The use of world is sort of representing the people of the world, and it's saying that if you laugh, the world will respond with laughter. A positive thought or a positive reaction or a positive action is going to yield a positive reaction. Weep and you weep alone. But, however, if you are feeling distressed, if you are grieving, if you're weeping and crying, then there's no one who's going to be able to comfort you and support you. You are on your own in that mission. For the sad old earth must borrow its mirth. And so you see here these simple words, sad old, to describe the earth. And it's almost signifying here, the sad old earth, it's that the earth is sad by default. So maybe this is speaking to the fact that misery is almost something that we deal with all the time, and that joy is perhaps short-lived. So the sad of old earth has to borrow its mirth. It has to find laughter, has to find positivity in other things, but has trouble enough of its own. So it cannot go ahead and give laughter, or not even laughter, but give comfort, because it's too consumed in its own misery. So it's like people have trauma of their own that they can't actually deal with other people's trauma as well, which is why we live without trauma. We have to deal with it in solitude. Notice the internal rhyme, which is a key theme that carries on throughout this poem, because there's a very clear rhyme scheme, but there's also this internal rhyme of earth and mirth. Later on, bound and sound as well. Notice there's lots of personification in this poem and lots of imagery, and that drives the point home the whole time. It really emphasizes the theme of being alone in grief and being surrounded and being the sense of togetherness when there's some laughter, when there's positivity. Sing and the hills will answer, sigh it is lost on the air. I think that's one of my favorite couplets over there, because it is such a wonderful use. We have sing and sigh, which are such similar words, and we can clearly see their juxtaposition. So the hills will answer, that's clearly personification, because hills cannot literally answer. So we're using figurative language here, and all that it means is sing is like When you're feeling joyful, when you're happy, you would sing, and you would sigh when you are upset. And when you sing, the hills will answer, the world will, appreciate it. They'll laugh with you, they'll sing along with you, because everyone craves that sort of positivity. But sigh if you're feeling depressed, then it is lost in the air. The echoes bound to a joyful sound, but shrink from voicing care. Also a very interesting couplet of dialogue. So the echoes and echoes are something that react, and bound means react. So the echoes will react to a joyful sound. Notice the internal rhyme again, which is quite nice in this line because it mimics an echo, right? Because an echo will react to you and it will project the same sound. So the internal rhyme is a really nice play on the word echo here. So if you are singing, if you are happy, then your echoes that are going to reach you are going to be joyful. However, they will shrink from voicing care. If you say anything negative, or if you are grieving, the echoes are not going to shout back. They will shrink away. And this word voicing is so clever because voicing care means to comfort someone, right? If you voice your care, you voice your condolences, or you comfort someone. But voicing also is a term used with echoes. It alludes to the use of echo in the previous line, that an echo responds to a voice. It's the voice being projected back. Stanza 2. Rejoice, and men will seek you. Grieve, and they turn and go. They want full measure of all your pleasure, but they do not need your woe. Be glad, and your friends are many. Be sad, and you lose them all. There are none to decline your nectared wine, but alone you must drink life's gall. So notice from the first stanza, we were talking about the world on the earth. Now we're talking about men, and we're going to be using the pronoun they. The pronoun they is significant because it's an exclusive pronoun. It does not include me as the speaker or even you as the reader. And so this emphasizes how the world, or people in the world, don't want to have anything to do with your suffering. So they are excluding themselves. So rejoice, and men will seek you. So if you are happy, if you are rejoicing, then people will want to be around you. They will want to be in your company. However, if you grieve, they turn and go. They will leave you. They do not want to be a part of that suffering. They want full measure of your pleasure. Notice the internal rhyme there with measure and pleasure, and it really adds to this idea of abundance, right? They want every aspect of your pleasure. They want to enjoy what you are enjoying. But they do not need your woe. But they do not need your sorrow. They do not need your distress. So notice that exclusive pronoun being used quite a bit in the stanza. Be glad, and your friends are many. Be sad, and you lose them all. Simple language to start off with there, but so pertinent and so true. Notice the anaphora. Remember, anaphora is the repetition of a word or phrase at the start of subsequent lines. In this case, it really emphasizes that the behavior of the world, this is a never-ending pattern of how we treat one another, how we want to be a part of people's joys and celebrations, but we shrink away from, or it's this idea of we shrink away from maybe comforting them. But even if you think about the origin of this poem, of the poet trying to comfort this woman and failing to comfort her, it's almost this idea we can shrink away from it, but also that we are unable to fully assist other people in their grief. We are able to share in their joy, but to assist them with their grief is challenging. So notice now the second person pronouns. We saw it as well in the first stanza, but the use of second person pronouns really makes it personally directed towards the reader. And this really emphasizes the message because we are feeling it. So it's not even like she's saying I, whereas, that would be also personal, and also, we'd understand her story. She's really putting it onto us, that we have actually felt this and experienced this, and that imparts the strength of the message even more. So it's quite self-explanatory. If you're happy, if you're glad, you're going to have many friends. But if you're sad, if you are depressed, or if you are not a joy to be around, if you're going through something, then you lose them all. I think this is a bit of hyperbole, it's a bit of an over-exaggeration, but it really emphasizes her point. Notice the dash here. The dash is used to indicate a further explanation coming up, and is used to really emphasize that, right? Because it really draws the reader's attention. And now we're going to use some wonderful figurative, metaphoric language. There are none to decline your nectared wine, but alone you must drink life's gall. So there are none to decline, meaning there's no one who's going to decline. There's no one who's going to say no to nectared wine, meaning like sweet wines. There's no one who's going to resist your offering of joining into the celebrations. But alone you must deal with life's resentment and the annoyance and the horrors of life. Maybe horrors is a bit of too strong of a word, but the difficulties of life you need to deal with alone. The third and final stanza. Feast and your halls are crowded, fast and the world goes by. Succeed and give and it helps you live, but no man can help you die. There is room in the halls of pleasure for a large and lordly train, but one by one we must all file on through the narrow aisles of pain. So now we get into the last stanza, which is by far the most melancholic of all the stanzas, I would say. And we are now going to go, we went from the world in the first stanza to men in the second stanza, and now we're going to go to the solitary man. So we really are understanding how we are sort of progressing from you can be joyful with others, and then as soon as things start getting more difficult and challenging, it gets like fewer people are able to assist you. And then now as you approach death, because this is all a bit of a euphemistic referral to death in the last few lines, you are on your own. There is no one who can help you. So notice the juxtaposition just to start off our final stanza, feast versus fast. So feast is if you have positivity to offer, right? You have an abundance of something. Your halls are crowded. Crowded has connotations of abundance. There's so many people want to enjoy the celebration. Fast, meaning you have nothing to offer. Maybe you are struggling. And the world goes by, which is sort of metaphoric in the sense that they don't see your pain. The world goes by, they don't even notice, or they seem not to notice your pain. Succeed and give, and it helps you live. So if you succeed in life, if you're giving to others, right, and giving in the sense of you're giving joy, you're giving something positive, obviously, then it helps you live. It helps you to prosper and even just survive in this world, right? Because we need other people in order to survive. But no man can help you die. And so now she's introducing this idea of death, which is going to be elaborated on in the next part of the stanza. And as we said, we shifted from world to men to man. And in this line, using the use of the singular form man emphasizes that no individual in the world is exempt and none can help you during this plight, meaning that everyone is experiencing this. No man is exempt from being able to go to his death with the help of others, but also that not a single person, do you see how that's really emphasizing this message? Not a single person can help you die, not even the closest person that you have. This is something that you have to undertake yourself. It is a solitary venture. You must go through the pain and suffering alone. It is part of the human experience when you reach that point in your life. There is room in the halls of pleasure for a large and lordly train. So there's room, just like there's halls in the first line of the stanza and here. There are aeons of space. Like if you think of halls, meaning like really big open areas, there's so much place for people to come and enjoy your pleasure. And here we have a large and lordly train. Notice the alliteration, large and lordly, and this alliteration of the L sound, it's like quite a longing sound, and it emphasizes the grandeur and the scale of the train that's coming through. And the train is obviously not a literal train. It's a metaphor. People who are enjoying your joy with you, who are reveling in your celebration. But always shows a change, a shift. We've used that word. She's used that word quite a bit in this poem to emphasize the juxtaposition. But one by one, also such a significant use of the word, or really emphasizing the theme of this poem, which is about solitude. One by one, we must file on. If you file on, it's almost like this acceptance of fate. And so the speaker is saying we have accepted this fate that we must do this alone. We must approach our death in solitude. We must approach grief in solitude. So one by one, really emphasizing how we arrive at death as a solitary person through the narrow aisles of pain. So narrow is restricted. There's no space for anyone else. If you're walking down a narrow street, you have to walk in a single file. And so talking about narrow aisles or narrow paths of pain, there's no one to help you when experiencing the pain, or even when you're on the pathway to death, or of enduring this incredible pain that's going to lead you there. There is no one who can assist you, no one who can understand your pain as their own, no one who can offer comfort that will actually yield the comfort that you are longing for. So quite a melancholic end to the poem, but I don't think that we can define this poem as depressing. I definitely would not. This is more of a commentary about this, or a reflection about this key aspect of all of our lives. So let's analyze this a little bit further. If we look at the structure, each stanza starts the first two lines with verbs, and this brings coherence to the piece. It also shows whatever you do and how the world will respond. So it links to this theme of reactions, that positive reactions yield, or positive thoughts yield positive reactions, negative behavior yields negative reactions. The rhyme scheme in the stanzas looks like A, B, C, B, D, E, F, E, because we have you, then we have alone, which rhymes with own, mirth by itself, answer by itself, air rhymes with care, and then sound. So it's really quite lyrical in that regard. The rhyme scheme really makes this a coherent piece, and it really communicates how thought out all of these lines are. In terms of the language, I find this quite interesting. There's a mix between simple diction and more complex comparisons and figurative language to drive the point home and to embellish what's being said. So there's lots of imagery to convey the themes. If we look at the tone, we could say the tone is sincere, thoughtful, reflective, contemplative. In the last stanza, especially the last few lines, I would say that it's melancholic. Notice in each stanza, it's 8 lines each stanza, but it sort of makes it seem like it's 2 quatrains in each stanza. There's like 2 groups of lines of 4. So that second one, and the last sort of quatrain in inverted commas in that last stanza could be defined. I think the tone could be melancholic. I think you have proof for that. The mood is solemn, it's thought-provoking. There's the sense of honesty and authenticity and sincerity. In terms of the theme and the message, the difficult reality of life, that we are alone, the individual versus the group, the idea of self-reliance, the sentiment that life is a solo venture. But ultimately, I would say it's quite ironic, in the sense that this entire poem is about how we are alone, and especially in grief, how we are alone. And yet, because we all experience solitude, because we all have to suffer through painful experiences alone, there's this unifying commonality among us. So what seems like a simple poem is actually quite complex and quite thought-provoking. I hope that you found that video helpful. I'll see you in the next one.